Hello, welcome to the pod with Garrett Elconin. And this is where I interview local entrepreneurs and solopreneurs ranging from business founders and entrepreneurs to creatives and artists to peel back the curtain on their success and their stories so that hopefully we can extract some tools, tips, and tactics that they use to become successful. And through that, I hope to inspire you, the audience, as well as hopefully give you some tangible things you can apply to your personal or professional life so that you can grow and live the life of your dreams. Today, I'm thrilled to have Chloe Millard on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Chloe is a serial entrepreneur, and I can't wait to dive into all of the various businesses that she's been a part of and started. And so right now, she's the founder of M4 Advertising, which is a full-service ad agency, as well as a luxury marketing firm. She's also the owner and publisher of Trophy West City Lifestyle, which is a luxury magazine focused on the local people, places, and things. She's also entering the real estate industry as we speak and taking on additional responsibilities with the Mastermind Group, which is where we met.
Yeah.
So thanks for being on the pod, Chloe, and let's dive right in.
Yeah, wow. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the intro.
Absolutely. So, all those different businesses, did you envision this life as an entrepreneur?
Yes and no. And so typically in my experience, when working with other entrepreneurs, you kind of find people take one of two paths in life. Either they fall into entrepreneurship as a happy coincidence or an accident, or they're probably a little bit more like me, where they have that mindset, that passion. Back in college, I even got a scholarship for entrepreneurship as most likely to be an entrepreneur. So I always had an indicator that was a path available to me, even though I am a first generation entrepreneur. So that's very important because I certainly didn't have a lot of encouragement in going into this space, nor did I have a lot of, cheerleaders and acceptance. All my friends and family, they were just like, what the hell are you doing? It was a lot of why are you going to exit your 9-to-5 job and do this thing that makes no sense? But I'm just someone that has always loved change and, naturally creative, but I never really harnessed my creativity until now. So, my answer is yes and no. I kind of always hoped I would have this life. I just didn't know that it could be to this kind of extent, if that makes sense.
Yes. And so when your family and friends are kind of pouring a little cold water on the dreams, how did you, persevere and get through that and come to the other side and actually start the business and then execute and overcome those early, challenges?
Yeah. That is actually one of my favorite things to talk about because, the further I get into my personal journey and the more entrepreneurs I meet, I don't know if you believe in, faith or coincidence or what have you, but my beliefs have certainly evolved as I have grown. And for myself, it was very much a situation of when I was younger, there was so much about myself that I didn't know in terms of, I've found now through therapy, which I highly recommend for everyone, that from my childhood traumas, I have, had extreme codependency, and that causes you to really question yourself and you feel insecure. So early on, when I was a young entrepreneur and doing my first couple of startups, I actually didn't really share it with too many people because things that I did get excited about and share prematurely, I was often crushed because I'd be met with that uncomfortable feeling of what? And for me, the worst thing was to feel judged or not accepted or made fun of. So I learned early on, and I've never been a bragging person. So I typically, the only time you hear about my wins is typically after they've happened already. So that was just me naturally. I didn't like sharing a lot of those things because I was embarrassed. What if I fail? But when I did, and I was met with that resistance and that you're never going to make it, another part to my personality is that's typically when I'm definitely going to do something, as if I have someone telling me, oh, you can never do that. And I see that in you too. I know we share that. We have that in common. It's one of those things where you either have that grit or you don't. And for me, it was just very much like this is my only option. But I noticed when I was younger, I would so easily go back on something if someone I cared about didn't buy into my idea. I would talk myself out of it. I would delay it. And now that I am where I'm currently at in my journey, that's the last thing that's on my mind. Like I know people that I can go to for business advice, like strategy talk. And now I know the people I used to depend on, like friends, family, they didn't have that same mindset as me. I'm the only entrepreneur. And so why would you talk about something with someone that can't understand what you're talking about? So you're kind of setting yourself up to fail if you're depending on your significant other to pick you up during the roller coaster ups and downs of entrepreneurship. But if they don't share that love of business like you do, you both are going to be, resentful even, but very let down because you're depending on that person to understand what you're going through and they just can't. For me, I dealt with it I realized early on there are certain people that I couldn't go to. And when I chose not to go to them, I ended up being more successful. So it's not about withholding or lying. It's just like, who you can depend on for X, Y, and Z and who you can go to for ABC. It's something I recommend people do. Just not share everything with the wrong people.
I think that's great advice because also when you do share something with someone, you feel like you've almost accomplished it or made some progress when in actuality you haven't.
Yeah.
And you have nothing to show for it. So it kind of gives you a false sense of accomplishment or productivity. So I think that's great advice. And like you said, there's entrepreneurs have a different mindset. And so sharing a vision with someone that doesn't see the vision or sees all the negatives or the drawbacks, they're just not going to get it and put all the pieces together. So, save yourself the effort and the mental fortitude. There's plenty of other ways you'll get resistance. So save yourself that trouble.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And so after graduating, you didn't immediately become an entrepreneur. You started off in the medical sales business. And then can you talk about the transition from that to entrepreneurship?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because for me, that was key. In college, I actually started my first little entrepreneurial venture. It wasn't an official business, but I wrote my first book when I was in college. So I self-published, I think, my senior year. And at the time, just something about me, like if you have that natural drive, you always want more, you can't sit still. Like that was me. I graduated high school early so I could go to college early. I was taking college classes at night when I was 16. So I graduated with my bachelor's in business and marketing when I was only 20. So I couldn't even go to the bars in my college town to drink and celebrate the night before with all my friends. I literally took a fake ID to a bar the night before graduation and got kicked out. Literally the chick was like 5 foot, black hair, and then literally 30 years old. And so it was very much like I'm 5'8". I was a blonde and just how dumb do you think we are? So it's just when I was doing that, I have always had this natural curiosity for life. I love learning how things work and I love new experiences. So in college, I realized that, social networking was just getting big. It was coming out, and obviously being a teen, young adult, you're just naturally more savvy with that kind of thing. So that was my first experience at seeing that, something I'm really good at, other people need help with, like business owners. That was my main thing. So my first real entrepreneurial stint was self-publishing that book. And I got the idea from an internship that I did. I did 100% ad sales. So it was all commission. And it was me selling college coupons to all of the local businesses on that campus. So going around to the market in DeKalb, Illinois as a 19-year-old blonde, junior or senior, it was tough work. I spent my entire summer literally just not doing anything but work. And I loved like, ooh, I'm talking to real business owners and finding out what they need. And I found out a lot of them needed help with social media. They didn't know what social networking was. And so I got the idea to write that book. And it's super embarrassing because now it's very outdated and old. And I like designed the cover myself. It basically Word, I'm sure. It's just, I'm dating myself. But I didn't do that when I graduated. What I did was I went after jobs that I knew. So I grew up with a mom who worked in pharmaceutical sales. I was very familiar with that industry. It's not typically an entry-level industry. So what I did when I was younger was I knew what I wanted. I was like, I want to never have to depend on anyone financially. I wanted to move out of my parents' house as young as I could. I wanted to graduate so I could get a job as early as I could. Like all I wanted to do was work and be taken seriously. Like I was so excited to just be a real adult. So what I did was I started looking at jobs in outside sales because when I was still in college, I would reach out to these pharma companies that had job postings. I would find my dream job. I would apply for it being extremely unqualified and kind of beg that recruiter or contact and ask them like, hey, I know that, when I would get that rejection email right away, I'd be like, I know that I don't have the experience. Please tell me, what experience are you looking for? Like, what job should I go get to get here? And that's kind of how my mindset has always worked. Like, what is my dream? Like, and now that I'm older, I want to think bigger. When I was in college, I was like conservative. Like, I don't want to be a CEO. I just want to be a sales rep to make money. So now I think, what is my biggest, hairiest dream, and like, how do I get it? So my first job out of college was I ended up being an account coordinator for a company called News America Marketing, which is a marketing agency. And I, again, was doing ad sales. And I was like, this isn't pharma or med device, but I'm going to work my way up the chain and I like it here. So maybe there's a future. 11 months into that, and I couldn't stand it. And it was the fact that this hierarchy of working for someone else, someone who's almost the same age as you, and then just like not having any control over your time, your day, or having any input. And for me, it's like, oh, that's fine. I'll just do the job. But it was soul sucking. And I wanted to be in pharma. So I was very fortunate at that time. My dream job in pharma became available. And even though I had just turned 21, I only had 11 months of experience under my belt. Back then, it was like frowned upon to not work at a place for like a year or longer. So I was like already feeling like the black sheep of how do I jump? But I got into pharma and was doing that for several years. But working in pharma, and I'm very open about this, I actually had my first instance of pretty severe like sexual harassment by my boss. And being a 22-year-old at the time woman, it's in my mind, my first big girl job. I'm like, I'm in the space I wanted to be in. And I still had a very, very naive outlook on the world. I did everything by the book. And in college, I was always in the mindset of, to be taken seriously, I have to be perfect and professional and mature, and nobody is ever unprofessional. I had a very black and white mindset. But my boss that was older than my dad, the very first meeting I had with him, looking back on it now, I'm like, oh, that was very inappropriate. But we had our ride along, our training day, worked really, really late until like late hours at night. And, because of the nature of those jobs, they're remote. He had a hotel because he traveled to see me. He had me at his hotel for the training, quote unquote. And it was getting so late. It was like 10 o'clock. And, again, I thought this was normal. I was trying to like impress him and stay late, like do what he needed. And it didn't get inappropriate at that instance, but I remember he walked me to my car. He was drunk, like we had been drinking and working. And I was like, again, just trying to like impress a father figure, I was like, I want to do a good job. And to say goodbye to me, I remember hugged me, patted me on the butt and then kissed me on the lips, and all in 1 second, to where before I knew what was happening. And that was like my first like week or two on the job. And I was terrified. I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't know what to think of that. And again, I had nothing to compare it to. I'd only worked with women at my old job. And I was just like, well, maybe this is the big leagues and that's just how they say hello and goodbye. Maybe I'm making a big deal out of this. But I literally cried like my whole drive home. And I can just remember feeling so much like shame and guilt, and I was nauseous, sick about it. And at the time, I married my high school sweetheart. So I was 22 with the same man I had been with since I was 16. We were living together. I think at that time we were possibly engaged, about to get engaged, one of those. So we were just serious. And I told him immediately, because I felt like, oh, this happened, protect me. And he was furious with me. He thought that I did it, that I welcomed it. And I mean, the reason I even share this tonight is because this truly was like the start of my story in seeing how the world is not a professional place. It's not a fair place. And I spent a lot of my life feeling like the victim of, this isn't fair. Why did this happen to me? And just putting up with it. And now, looking back, I see how all of that had nothing to do with me. It's not my fault. And I had every right to speak up for myself and fight back. But I just didn't have the tools at the time. I didn't know that I deserved better. So now, as substantially later, about 10 years later, I'm a more, mature and grown woman, and I've been through more. And now, as like a single mother of 3 and 2 of them being girls, I am so passionate about supporting other women and being open about my story, because it happens constantly and no one talks about it, specifically the women, because it's scary. And so everywhere I go, I will literally wear my heart on my sleeve on the off chance that some woman is touched by it, opens up, shares her story, and she heals from it. That went on for about 2.5 years. Every interaction was kind of like that. And I basically learned to deal with it. It was like, oh, that's just him, how he is. And so for me, I was just putting up with it and was afraid to come forward. But a male coworker of mine saw it at a conference. He witnessed how, I guess he, his interaction with me and how I was visibly uncomfortable, but just didn't stop it. And that employee ended up going to HR behind my back and getting my boss fired without my say. And I was humiliated, because I was like, the last thing I wanted to do was get anyone in trouble, because I knew that people would blame me, and they did. I ended up having to quit that job because it became unbearable to work there. And obviously I just moved on. I didn't do anything about it. But then in my next companies I went to, they were in med device. And I just felt like, this was a natural transition for me anyways. That's fine. And at those companies, that's when I had began having my children. And at the one company I was working at that I can't disclose for legal reasons, but I became pregnant with my first baby, and I was number 2 in sales at our company. I was just busting my butt to be a rock star rep. I got promoted and then got pregnant. And from there, I realized I was being targeted because I was one of the only women on the team. And I told my boss, I was planning my maternity leave. I was saying, hey, I'm teeing up all these accounts so I can just give them to you. That way they'll be ready to go and we won't lose any sales when I'm out on leave. Then I'll be right back and I'll pick it up. And he'd asked me to take a demotion, to take one. He literally was like, hey, I think after you have your baby, I feel like it'll be really hard for you to keep working. So if you want to go back to the job that you started at, which was like an associate rep where you're proving yourself. And it was my first job. So I was proving myself in med device. And I got promoted finally to like a territory manager, which meant I had my own accounts and I was grinding. 8 months pregnant. I'm in the OR with, surgeons operating, and I'm on my feet for like 6 hours in a surgery, just watching in case something goes wrong. I was still doing that even though I was pregnant. And a lot of women, they work pregnant in the OR, and it's a beast. But doing that, I said no. I respectfully declined the demotion. And then he targeted me to fire me. And again, I'm not at all disclosing who this company was. It's in the past, but it's super important because with my story, I was about to lose my job right before I gave birth to my first daughter. And that would have crippled our family because I was a breadwinner in our household. And it blew my mind. It was unfathomable to me. And I had it in writing where I said, to be clear, this is not a reflection on my job performance. I'm not being punished for any wrongdoing. It's you thinking that as a woman, I can't be both a mother and like the best sales rep here. And that 100% was what it was. So that was when I realized that I needed to be like someone else, like an entrepreneur. That was when I realized this is probably not going to be a lifelong career. So I ended up winning the lawsuit. I've switched companies, obviously. And then at my next company, a very similar thing happened. It was after my second daughter was born. And I thought, holy shit, like this is not happening again. Like, why? And I'm not someone that ever complains or wants to see an opportunity to like be greedy. I was just like, no, this is just bullshit. Like I just didn't want to be quiet about it. So at that point, I'm just pissed off and I'm like, I'm not dealing with this. So I was about to just flat out quit and not try to be the hero that saves another girl from going through it or whatever. But no, I ended up like talking to my attorney from the first lawsuit that became such a good friend, telling her, just venting like, oh, this is happening, so I'm gonna quit. And she's like, are you kidding me? Like, that's so illegal. You can't just quit. Like, no. And so I'm glad I listened to her because I did file a second suit. I ended up winning that one. And I symbolically took the winnings from both of those lawsuits and put them into buying businesses in downtown Chicago. And that was how I had my first acquisition in entrepreneurship. Some of my previous businesses, ones that you originally asked me in your first question, I'm so sorry I didn't talk about. My very, very first experience in entrepreneurship, I started a yoga subscription box. Like, I don't know if I told you this story. If you're familiar with like Birchbox, yes, or with those makeup, it was so hot at the time. It was like the peak of like, ooh, this box just came out. That was the one good thing about that ad job I told you was my first gig out of college. That's when I learned about Birchbox because all the women, that's all they talked about is like beauty and mindless nonsense. So I was like, ooh, this is a business idea and it's brilliant. You get a monthly subscriber base and you just put out some shit and they love it. Like I was like, this is brilliant. So that was when I started dabbling in design. And I did that because I wanted to know, how do you start a company from scratch, from like idea and bringing that all the way to fruition and executing. So that job, like that subscription box I started with yoga, that was when I was working at pharma and all that bad stuff was happening. It was also like year 2. Like, I don't know about you. I get really bored after like a year and a half, 2 years. I get that itch and I have to do something else, which is exactly where I am now. But so I tried that and it was going great and I couldn't believe it. I was like, shit, we actually have orders? Like I had customers from it? Because I loved yoga at the time. I was a teacher while I was working in pharma and while I had a children's charity also that I founded. But that was all at a time in my early 20s before kids. And I tried this yoga subscription box thing. And I even hired my mother-in-law at the time because she was disabled. I wanted to give her a job. All this stuff, Garrett, that I was like, that was crazy. But very small order base. And then after I was working for a little bit, at this point, I'd already gotten into med device. I had like my first job, but it was a company that got bought out. So 6 months into it, when I had the yoga box, I'm working at this new company. 6 months into it, they announced the buyout of the med company I represented, and they dissolved our sales force. So at this time in my life, I'm like, I just started my first business. I had just gotten married. I just bought our first house. And so I'm like, okay, okay, adult life is here. Like I have a mortgage now. And it was just like very serious. And then I found out I was getting laid off. And I think at the time I was like 24. And the only thing I had to compare it to was, oh no, my mom still won't stop talking about my dad's layoff from like 8 years ago and how terrible that was for our family. And now it's happening to me. I'm way younger than them. Like, how am I going to deal with this? So I panicked based on, other people's panics, and it ended up not being bad at all. Like I got a severance pay, which was dope. I dissolved my yoga box company. I was like, Mom, I'm sorry. Like my mother-in-law, she was pissed at me for a while. But I was like, I'm sorry, shit's real. I have to like get a new job. I can't mess around with these like yoga cards anymore. And so I just dissolved that business without really trying, got a new job pretty quick.
But in that, sorry to interrupt, but in that yoga box, you learned how to start a company and gave you the confidence to say, okay, well, yes, I can do this.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Please interrupt me. You have to. But it was like the coolest thing because I didn't realize at the time that I thought it was all strategy. It was fun being creative because yes, what I did was as a yoga teacher, I learned that creating yoga sequences is like a really cool form of self-expression. Like I would jam out to like my favorite music, my playlist. And I knew that I had certain members in my class that couldn't stand me. And I'm like, so fine, don't come to this class. But they kept showing up. So what I did for the yoga box, I was like, people love yoga. Like they love it. And as like a young adult, when you start to realize what makes people tick, you're like, damn, I can do that. Like, if that's what you like, I'll do it. And so what I started doing was, as I was a yoga teacher, I knew that what classes and sequences people were really into. And then with that, being in that like health and wellness community, I also knew what kind of weird supplements they were buying and how a lot of people that like yoga, they also like the other quote unquote hippie stuff too, where they like teas, candles, like once you get in on this like natural route, it's everything. And just now, like looking back on it, I'm just like, it's like I'm right back living it. And all the things that I thought of that I did, I'm like, I would probably still do it the same way today, even though I know different stuff. Like the packaging I had, I bought these boxes that were just like the same subscription size that you would get any other Birchbox or whatever. But obviously those big conglomerate companies, they had advantages I didn't have at the time, like capital. So I was like, okay, what can I afford to spend on branding, design, packaging? What do I know? And I just researched the right cardboard to buy. And I thought like, okay, I definitely don't have enough money to go rent a printer and to like pay for, like you buy these plates, like, for printing. And so you get a design, there were several thousands of dollars to buy branded plates that you just repeat over and over, that I was like, not worth it. I'm just going to get plain craft boxes because that's hippie shit. Like they'll love it. Like it's organic. Thank you.
Natural, all that stuff.
It was like simple branding, but really your girl was cheap. I just needed to be very cost effective. So
in that though, you're almost building this customer profile on how to target them and kind of how to, the ad side of you and the marketing side is really coming out, and that seemed to be where your passion is that's what you're talking about mostly.
Yeah, well, I love that you bring that up because looking back, like young, excited Chloe that had the whole life ever, I was doing things that you learn about in case studies in school, and I went to business school, so I knew what I was doing. But now that I have like a professional agency, at the time, you're absolutely right. I didn't realize I was identifying my avatar. Like I had a very target market. I was going after women that cared about health and wellness. I had it down to like an age range. And in my mind, I didn't even realize it's like that's the groundwork. You need to be doing that. I just kind of like did it as part of my process. But I cut a lot of corners. I was like, I needed to have, an operating agreement. I wanted to have a more official LLC. Oh yes. That's why I launched that business, was so I could learn how to form an LLC. I just thought like, I've always wanted to know how to build a business. It was always just on my mind. I didn't learn it in school, like the way I wanted to learn it. I'm one of those people that I have to learn by doing. Like, you can talk to me all day about something I need to know, and I won't fully get it until I go and try it myself. So I wanted to know how to form an LLC, how to build a website from scratch, how to like market, and then the branding too. It took me a long time to learn like how to package, all that stuff. So it was fun. I don't have that much fun anymore when I'm learning that kind of, you know what I mean? Like, you get burnt out. So I'm like, I had fun when I was younger, and now I'm like, I couldn't do all that type of stuff over again, like the learning in and out bit.
Yeah, you're still starting more and more businesses.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I'm learning in a different way. You're right. I guess it is.
Yeah. What is it about entrepreneurship that really intrigues you and you keep starting more businesses? It sounds like there's some formative experiences with employers that you just weren't happy with. So, yeah. Yeah,
no, absolutely. To back up, like, yes, were there a lot of instances in corporate where I was like, this is not for me? Absolutely. But it's more so the... I would definitely say like the dynamic change of, you know, I'm someone that's a builder. Like I've always been that way. Even when I was in corporate, I just really identified with the growth mindset of my niche, and like what I'm best at is like growing. So I would always play for the underdogs, I used to call them. Like, I loved companies that, you know, I worked for privately held. I worked for small to medium size. The ones I didn't love were like the really big mega blue chip, because there's more red tape. I loved working for an underdog because I could get in there. I could have a lot more responsibility, a lot more control. I think that's the key. A lot of entrepreneurs, we love having control over not just like our schedule and our day. I mean, I would love a 9 to 5 because people don't take their work home with them when they're a 9 to 5. My work never turns off, and it's like a constant stress. But what I didn't like fit in with in like the corporate culture is the fact that you're so limited in what you can build. And I didn't realize how much of myself, like I love building and I need that. And I'm very much a visionary. Like I didn't have words to put to it when I was going through my journey early on, but now I realize it's the ability to kind of dream, plan out the future, and then execute. Those are all things that I need. And it's just become kind of this high in my business that I chase. And I can't see myself going back to corporate life because there's so much limitation.
Almost that energy that you get from this big idea,
yes,
and then working your way through the journey to create it come to fruition and then see how you can help people.
Oh, 100%. And I think you probably agree too, because like we are in the same mastermind, and I know that you've heard it kind of talked about repeatedly that entrepreneurs, like we can get addicted to this like repeat cycle of like it's constant struggle, but then that one win, it's so worth it. And just having like that grit and determination. You know, nobody likes to lose. Nobody likes to go through hardship. And like, if I'm being honest, this past week for me has been like one of the most challenging I've had in a super long time. It's painful, but like it helps challenge me to almost like you put your body through this war, and every time you're just kind of, it's like going to the gym almost, like being challenged constantly in your business. It keeps me like on my A game. It keeps me like hustling and trying hard. And now that I've gone through so many like wins, but also failures, I now know like the path that I'm on currently, I have never questioned it. I've never deviated from it, and I'm still building it. Like I still haven't gotten with my new startup nearly like to the point of great success. It's like, no, I'm still like in the grind phase, and that's okay. Like, you know, if you're onto something, if you can be that sure about your decision. So at least that's a good feeling to have. But yeah. You just got to cut me off.
That's great. Well, let's dive into the businesses. So there's definitely a few, so you can kind of take questions and take them where you want.
Okay.
But kind of what all are you involved in right now?
Okay. So currently I own my luxury marketing firm that I founded almost 2 years ago now. And
That's M4 Advertising?
correct. Yes. And yes, we do own and publish Trophy West magazine. So perfect. But I just launched my new startup, which is in real estate development, called Box Lux Homes. And that is like near and dear to my heart. And I've made a lot of good recent traction. But yeah, I'm happy to dive into how that came about as much as we want. And also, just like on a personal branding side, things that we have in the pipeline is, this year, that's why I'm super excited to be on your podcast, just doing a lot more PR on this topic, because I've been doing more public speaking recently, wanting to really, really help women. So women entrepreneurs, women mothers, and then really a passion project for me now is women that are, victims of domestic violence or are trying to kind of break out of something that is not healthy. So, I'm just dabbling a little bit more in that space. And we're trying to, pitch a sizzle reel for the concept of a show that is, on this new business of building from shipping containers, which is so unique in our space. And there are virtually no women in this industry or space. I don't know if you know a lot of women builders. They don't have many. And so as a developer, it's just something that I really want to, talk to more women about and how to kind of build their own dream.
Well, from briefly knowing you, I know you're going to inspire many people. I'm excited to see you, talk and speak and share your story, because you're going to help tons of people. So excited to see that.
Thanks, Garrett.
Absolutely. And yes, being a developer myself, I see the nature of the business, which is definitely females are lacking. So appreciate you bringing awareness to that.
Yeah.
Yes, because it is a great industry. Real estate in general is a great industry. But before we dive into that and kind of the ideation phase and execution, let's talk a little bit about your expertise in advertising.
Yes.
So what insight do you have about the luxury consumer, since that's kind of more your specialty?
And as soon as we moved here, I'm just like a naturally friendly, open person. If you can't tell by this podcast, I'm also an open book. So I live in my authentic self every day. And then that byproduct, I welcome people that gravitate to that energy, that appreciate that, and just by being honest. So I was fortunate to be close friends with so many of these powerful women that just freely volunteered their shopping habits and things they were into, and the things that they wanted other businesses to market for. Like, they would just freely tell me, like, this is what would make me buy that. And you learn too, being in that category, these consumers, they're not affected by price at all. So I even advise my clients, I'm like, we don't want to discount your services. And being in our type of marketing, we more specialize in branding. And that's very like a big thing I want other entrepreneurs to know, especially anyone listening to this. Like, the marketing advice that I try to give a lot of entrepreneurs is knowing what strategy is going to work for your business. So for example, if you're in a very competitive space and you want to reach a more affluent clientele that is going to be more likely to pay for your high ticket items, they're going to be more likely to do cash pay if you happen to be like a medical facility. Like, a lot of these patients, like, they have insurance, but they love concierge services, and that's cash. So a lot of my clients, it's very attractive to market to this type of consumer because we're all sick of discounting our prices. So my advice is to know, like, what you're in is going to dictate what type of marketing you should do that you'll get the best bang for your buck. So for example, branding, what we specialize in, is tends to be more expensive, and it also is a long-term play, but it works. Like, you can become an expert in your space and gain loyal, high-paying customers for life if you do it right. And it also is a great way to eliminate a lot of fast followers, fake businesses that are just like trying to rip off a product and make a quick buck. Like the affluent consumer, they can smell that. Like they don't fall for that. So we only work with high-end businesses that are ethical, respectable, and that we feel comfortable putting in front of our audience.
You mentioned on another podcast leveling up a business's customer so that they can target this affluent customer and the results they get by choosing their customer and choosing to pick this affluent customer. Can you talk a little bit more about that and why businesses should level up their clients and really be picky about who they, choose to work with and how that benefits them in the long run, the profitability and all that stuff?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a fabulous question. So really it boils down to, and a way to explain it is we've all been there where you have so many things you need to get done. And instead of like focusing and picking a lane and going all in on one thing and making it really great, you try to half-ass everything. And you're just like, well, something should stick, right? Like that's the same with marketing. You can tell. So I have clients that I work with them to not make this mistake, but typically the number one mistake I see businesses make when it comes to their marketing is they don't know their target market. They don't know their consumer, or they have no plans to target an end consumer. You can really get yourself in a hole when you try to reach everyone. Number one mistake businesses make is they think, well, my customer is everyone, because obviously, like, I'm Nike, I sell shoes. Everyone needs shoes. Like, you have shoes, you should buy my shoes. And if you notice, like Nike, they have very specific marketing campaigns to reach every type of audience that is necessary for them. They do a fabulous job with their branding and their marketing, and they do reach everyone. And so there's nothing wrong with reaching everyone, but the mistake that businesses make that I think is important for entrepreneurs to be aware of is, if your client is everyone, you need to have separate campaigns for each specific avatar for each of those markets, because you can have your client be everyone, but you can't have your marketing be to everyone. Yeah, you need to have it very strategic, segmented, and targeted. So,
but that's a costly approach. If you have all these different avatars and you're targeting them, that's very costly. So it would be great to start with one, execute that, and then build upon that and kind of create a portfolio or products that align specifically with that specific target.
Oh, 100%. And so that's a great point. And to give like a very good, kind of a more clear example and how you do that is, what you do is, I would recommend you can sit down with either a consultant or like a marketing agency. We do retainers, for example. So almost like you would retain an attorney for advice, people retain us for advice. But a good example is I've worked with like physicians, and one of my clients was an allergist, and she was brand new to the area, wanted to reach, all the affluent consumers because she was a cash pay business, and really struggled with, okay, everyone has allergies, right? So who should we reach? How do we get this messaging out there? And to gain awareness and branding in a new area where you don't have a presence, what I always have people do is we start with like the low-hanging fruit and think about what's going to make sense for your expansion and how you gain your presence. So for this specific client, as an allergist and coming to South Lake, Texas, our type of marketing and the targeting she wanted to do as well, she wanted to go the magazine route. So that's another thing. We look at our client's business and we figure out what's going to be the best play. Do we want to do print? Do we want to do digital? Do we want to do ads? Do we want to do other mailer? Like, there's just lots of options. But for this particular client, the magazine made the most sense. And given what we know about our readership and our demographics for that, I recommended to her, I said, hey, we need to go after children in this demographic. And I'm going to tell you why. So for her, in order to get the most presence, exposure, and brand branding, I said, we need to start with the family. And specifically with allergies, I know like we see it in our marketing that adults, especially men and women who tend to be our readers making most of their family decisions, they will put off going to the doctor for as long as they can because they're busy, especially in this affluent bracket. They don't have time. But one thing people never skimp on and they don't put off is their kids. And she had concierge memberships. She wanted to sell to the whole family. I always ask my clients, like, where do you have like your highest profit? Where do you make your most of your money? Because that's another mistake clients make is they want to market everything. And especially when they're passionate. I love entrepreneurs that are passionate. But if you are an expert, which I hope you are, but being in your field, I see it a lot with doctors. They are so passionate about their specialty, their craft, which I love, but they have no idea how to consolidate and be concise and market a message. They're like, yeah, but we do genome testing. We do this type of testing. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That is very specialized. You're not going to get anyone in here for that. But something everyone has, the sniffles during allergy season or their children, like tell me something that I wouldn't know because I'm not an allergy expert. And I learned that like my daughter even, she got a rash one day and I thought, oh my gosh, like poison ivy, bug bite, what could this be? Could be a food allergy. And so that was something that I learned that I'm like, hey, I used to work in medical. I didn't even know that we need to talk about that. And I'm not a fan of fear-based selling by any means, but I am a huge fan of educating. And I know too what'll get someone to stop in their tracks. So if I'm selling someone on an ad in a magazine, our goal is not to like show your entire portfolio of services and get every word we can onto that ad space because damn, you paid for it. We better talk about everything. No, our goal is to get the reader to stop. You want to catch attention and you just want to get interest to go to the next thing. And so that's another tip I would offer anyone in their marketing.
Simplification is a key to that.
Yes. And this isn't even just for your ad strategy. This is for anyone in sales. A huge part of getting the meeting and converting that client or just getting to the next meeting, the next step is to not show up and throw up, which I'm guilty of even today. Like I'm late with you because I had a dinner and I showed up and throwed up the whole time and talking, and less is always more. And especially in modern branding, which us being, our specialty is luxury marketing, our branding is very modern. So less is always more. We use a lot of white space. We use a lot of modern elements and we don't have a ton of text because people just don't read anymore. And even the way people read too, it's, there's a lot of psychology behind how the human eye will scan information because we're all trained to be quick and even faster. So now it's like we used to even make static Facebook, Instagram ads, posts. Those don't even perform anymore because everyone's into video. Just capturing the consumer's attention is so hard these days and it's also so expensive. So if you're going to do it, you need to know your shit. You need to know who that customer is, what they want, what problem you solve for them. Because another thing, this should be mistake number 6 by this point, but all of my clients are guilty of this and talking more about them than about their customer. Like, look how great we are. This is what we do. What can you do for me? Because another thing I do is I encourage a lot of my clients to do cross-promotional marketing with other businesses. I'm a huge fan of partnerships.
And about that, making yourself, and talking about yourself, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, fantastic book, highly recommend, where you don't want you to be the hero. You want the customer to be the hero of their own journey. And you're the guide helping them overcome a problem against this villain. And so making sure that you place the role and the character in the right place is key to that story.
I love that. And, that's also very, very true for leaders. I don't know if you agree with me, but whether you're leading a sales team or leading your business, I'm a huge believer that if you're the captain of your ship, it is not about you. It's about your team. And a lot of, business owners, they get so wrapped up in their business because they want to be the hero, or they are afraid to give up any control, that they end up working far more in their business than on it. And so that's another time that I see businesses fail or their marketing not succeed, because that owner is not in charge of their own strategy. They're not in charge of their own schedule. They are not making the decisions they need to make to scale their business. And so it's a great gig if you love your craft and you just want to work for yourself. That's great. But like you and I have learned in our current mastermind too, like if you want to be major, you need to step away so you can scale. So I think that's super important.
Have the systems in place and be the right leader that your team needs.
Yeah.
It sounds like when you get these clients, you're helping them with advertising and marketing, but also business consulting and some little therapy and leadership.
All of it. Oh yeah. I do not charge nearly enough. But I see it as me paying it forward, because so many people do that for me, where the advice I get is invaluable. The time I get with people is invaluable. And if something changes and makes that much of an impact for me, I just turn around and do it back. I'm constantly overstepping, it feels like, because I see things that my clients will do wrong, I have a heart for them because we become friends, that I'm just like, bro, you would have so much more time if you just hired someone to do XYZ.
What's an example of a client doing something and you said, why are you doing that? Maybe you should think about doing it this way, and it categorize or a catalyst large growth opportunity?
Oh yeah. I mean, the majority of my clients, they are owner operators, and you have to be, but if a lot of people will start a business because they are already working in that business and they just don't want to work for somebody else. Like a good example is the businesses I owned when I was in Chicago. Those were facial bars, which it's a beauty salon that only performs facials. So fun fact, the beauty industry, the more segmented you are and you're in a niche category, it increases your efficiencies. They go through the roof, cuts down on waste, whatever. So I bought them, but I didn't buy them because I was an esthetician that loved giving facials, that wanted to work for myself. I bought them because I didn't know a damn thing about that business. I had no excitement or love, but as in, if something went wrong, I wouldn't be devastated. I was like, well, it's a business that makes money, and I could relate to it. But that was exactly what happened. During the pandemic, I was a business owner in downtown Chicago that had all this overhead. When they cut off, the world basically, and businesses stopped, I had 30 employees on my payroll, 2 different brick and mortar locations, one in River North, one in West Loop of downtown Chicago. And my rent alone, the rent every month was almost 20 grand between the two. It might have been like 15 to 17. So it wasn't quite 20, but that was just a dead drop in the bucket that wasn't forgiven. So what people failed to realize is during that time period, commercial rent was not forgiven, was not able to be bypassed at all. I was going to get sued, but all the residential ones were. Even my mortgage, I was able to defer. So as a business owner, it was. And
in addition to all of that overhead, you had 30 employees, W-2.
Correct.
So how did you kind of transform that, huge setback with COVID and bring your business to none, basically, and go from there?
Oh yeah. So I should probably talk more about that, because I was scrappy, and that's something I'm proud of. So when the world shut down, I, like every other business owner, we didn't know how long it was going to be. We thought it was going to be quick. So I was very calm, patient for about 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I played nice. I was calm and patient. It was a franchise at the time. So an example I wanted to tell you before was that a lot of the other business owners on my phone calls, they were all estheticians that decided to buy this franchise so they could work work in it and make all the money. And what I saw was that they really, really struggled with making those decisions of like when to cut things off or when to hire help, because you can't save your business if you're the only one working in it. So they would be distracted with clients when I am able to like have all these meetings with bankers and figure ways out of like the loans that we had. And it was just like the way I acquired those businesses was just insanity. And also like the way I exited those businesses was insanity. Like looking back, if I could be proud of any version of myself outside of the version I am now, it was how much of a shark I was then. I was like, if you have a crisis, I'm the right girl to have, right? Like if it's like a very small, not a big deal for me, I'm like, oh, this is awful, the world's over. But if there's a major, major crisis, I am calm and I get shit done. So
take me in the mind of Chloe during a crisis.
Oh my gosh.
How does she problem solve?
Immediately, like I just analyze every scenario. I am a problem solver at my core. So when this pandemic happened, number one, as soon as the world shut down, a lot of other owners, they were like, I'm going to still pay my staff, because to be clear, it was a service-based business. If we're not performing a service, there's no staff member in there. So I'm like, why would I pay you to sit at home? No one's paying me. So it wasn't a case of I don't care about my people. It was very much a case of we literally have no revenue to pay them. But these other owners were like, well, I'm going to pay them out of my own pocket, out of the kindness of my heart. And it was California. I mean, why are we surprised? I was just kidding. But I was like, don't do that, because you're setting a precedent that you're going to continue to do that. We have no idea how long this thing's going to go on. And 2 weeks of pay for 30 people, it was insane. So instead,
how'd you get revenue?
I didn't. Like
you just cut costs.
No, yeah. So the way I cut costs was I stopped paying my people. No, I took advantage of every single program that became available during the pandemic. So all I did every day, all day, was read the news, figure out from all my local banks, like how to get a PPP loan. I felt like at the time, finance was never my strong suit, or I told myself that, because my now ex, he was the finance guy. So that's another thing I tell women is like never cheat yourself of that, be financially literate. So I went out and I fought for 6 months to get our PPP funding, and I finally got it. And I felt so victorious. And I called, I pulled every lever I could pull, because it's like, hey, pandemic, I can't pay this loan money. I can't pay my rent. I can't pay any of this stuff on these businesses because I'm a service-based business. I was like class 3 level red, because with servicing, if people, you were in Texas, I'm sure. I love Texas. I don't think y'all ever shut down. But with service-based businesses, all we did was we needed that human contact, and we couldn't have it. So it's not like if we were mobile, they would allow it. No, they're like, you can still sell retail product. And I'm like, F you, man, it'll cost me more to staff the store and to get them to drive it. Like it meant nothing for us to sell retail product. So we dabbled in that. We did a little bit membership sales. Some members continued to pay, which was kind of them, but no, we didn't have any revenue. So I worked quickly and just shut everything down that I could. Anyone that would let me forgive, I took it. And then I got that PPP money, and I went to so many banks to get it. It was not easy, but I got like $75,000 on the first draw.
Well, that's a lot about business and stuff. Do you want to quickly get into the real estate thing, and then we'll jump into some other kind of random fun questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So I founded Box Lux Homes early last year, and I had no idea what I was doing. I've never developed anything. I have a little experience in real estate. I dabbled with investment properties in Chicago as a landlord for Airbnb. But so I really had the idea, being in the luxury space. I know that these container homes are so hot. I've always wanted one. And honestly, I'm like, okay, well, if I like it, then I know that this type of demographic would like it. So I got the idea out of the mastermind you and I are both in. So I was just really trying to brainstorm what a new startup could look like. And I came up with the idea. I really went hard on just finding contractors right away. Like immediately I used some of the resources I had from my magazine, and I asked them if they knew anyone that was building these homes or how that even worked. And I secured financing. I went and did like lots of rounds of just like I took out lines of credit in the name of my business. And if you have good personal credit, that's a huge thing I highly recommend, is take out credit cards in your business name and do it with a company like I did. So I use like Raise Capital, if you want to put a name on, but going with like a company, what they do is they can put out lots of applications on your behalf all at once. You can get approved for a bunch of them, whatever. So I got funding just so I could have it when the time comes that I need to start, buying, paying draws to these contractors. But what's crazy is like after I came up with the concept, I immediately just started designing logos. That's what I do. I'll do that in like an afternoon. If you and I go out for drink, I'll be like, oh, this is a cool business idea. Let's make a logo. Like I'm very much an Andrew. So I designed a logo. I even designed a tagline that's evolved. So I did all of this stuff last year. And then I went out to find my contractors, my team. I even started filming the sizzle reel that we were going to pitch to HGTV. I did all this stuff. And then I found out that this person I trusted blindly with no background, no fact checking, nothing, was a liar. This contractor claimed to have built all of these container homes that I was blown away by. Like these were pictures that he provided that, unsolicited, like this is my work. And I remember I said several times, I was like, you built these. And he was always like, yeah. We even drove out to a bunch of them in Waco, Texas, with this dude in his car. I did bring my photographer with me, a woman, because I'm like, I'm not stupid. I'm bringing backup. But we went to all these container homes in Waco, and from Dallas, that's like, an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. We get there, we get out, we're looking around. He can't get into any of them. I was like, I thought you built these. You don't have the code? You don't have the keys? Like, oh.
Red flag number one.
Yeah, he's like, this is a management company. I was like, you don't have his number? He's like, I tried calling him. He's like, if you can rent one. I was like, me rent one? I was like, no. I was like, I don't want to stay here, because they also weren't even good. They were single units. And if you know anything about my work, we do like a minimum of 5 containers. But these were all like single containers, like barely considered glamping. Like it felt like camping is what it felt like. But we couldn't get into any of them. And also, he just, I don't know, something was off. So I started doing my own little research, and I looked at some of the pictures he sent me, and I found them on Instagram under a different account for a builder, like a different developer. And I ended up setting up a call with this woman, because I'm like, this photo he said was his, and it's clearly hers. So let me call her. And she is this another, amazing woman in this field that I wanted to get into, who just gave me an hour of her time, told me like how her company works and what they do. And so grateful to her, because just being able to connect with other entrepreneurs like that, just having like an initiative, being like, I think something is wrong. Let me look into this. Let me call this person. And since then, Garrett, it's literally just been a jumping game of like, I need to find my perfect contractor. Like all these people are lying. So it was actually when I was speaking at a masterclass in LA. I was on stage, and I just shared a blip of like, oh, this is a challenge I'm facing right now. I can't find the right contractor. And someone in the audience ended up approaching me and said that they had a contractor for me that was based in Houston. And I was like, no way. And he just connected us. And I've been with that GC ever since, who's phenomenal. We're about to do our first deals together. So where we are now is launching the business. It took me 6 months to get to the final contractor that I need to get to my guy.
Before you dive into where you're at,
yeah,
I want to pull something for our audience. There's been a theme: before you start businesses, you do something. And it's you kind of reach out to the network that you have, or find a network in the business and kind of pick their brain. And accumulate knowledge, which I think is so key, because if you don't know where you're going, then you're going to end up wherever your path leads you to.
Yeah.
And you don't know where your result is. So I think that's pretty interesting with your advertising business. You leverage the neighborhood and the women in the network, and then asking them questions, picking their brain. And then once again with the real estate business. And I think that's so key, and I do that as well, is just you have people around you. So have conversations with them, be transparent and open. And so many people are willing to give you their time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just inviting people on this podcast, and they're willing to give me.
Yeah, unpaid. I wanted to come and talk to
Exactly.
you. Yeah.
So I just want to pull that out, that, if you do have an idea or not, if you even want to go to a specific career, just go out and talk to people. They'll give you so much information, tools for free.
Yeah.
And so if you don't ask, you won't know. So continue. Where are we at with this business?
No, that's a great point. I love that you bring that up, because, and where I'm at now, I personally love watching how things change, because you start with an idea. You have a vision, but something so important being an entrepreneur is being flexible. I always start having a vision and going, okay, I'm aware and I'm okay that these things will probably change. I'm open to things changing, but I do think it's important to have a few core beliefs of this is a non-negotiable, this can't change. So for me in my business now, one of the things that's a non-negotiable for me that can't change is with every new business I start, this is from our mastermind that inspired me, I also have to have a nonprofit vision attached to that business. So for example, with Box Lux Homes, I wanted to build custom luxury homes based out of shipping containers, because there's so much money in that. Like I could talk more about that, but I'm not doing this for the money, because my nonprofit vision attached to it is I want to build safe havens for women and children of domestic violence. And doing so with these containers allows me to build at a far larger scale than I could otherwise, to do them much quicker, faster, and more cost effective. It's far cheaper. But the number one thing is that these are amazing for the environment. They are sustainable. So if you have them solar powered, they're completely off the grid, which makes them untrackable. So if a woman needs to get away and to not be like located or found, like these are fully, protective. So for me, that's when I started the company. I had that vision. So it helps keep you on a path. You have a purpose. I highly recommend it. Don't just chase money. And so me sharing that vision has also put me in the right rooms with the right people, because when you're vocal about what you want, and if what you want is to make things better, like you are truly wanting to just add value. Obviously, we all need to make a living, but if you approach entrepreneurship with, I want money, I just want to make a lot of money. Well, it really doesn't matter what the hell you do. It's like you either are going to make money or you're not. But I promise you'll be unfulfilled. And so when I realized that, and all these things I keep chasing, I never feel fulfilled. And I think, why is that? Why am I not fulfilled? And it's because up until this point, all the things I've done, all the projects I've done outside of selling devices in the OR, I never felt like I had a real impact on anyone's life, or I was doing anything life-changing or something that was like good, that really mattered. Because at the core, like advertising, the thing I love most about it is helping those business owners. I don't love putting out a magazine with my face in it. Like I'm a very private person. I have no problem like public speaking, because I know it's like you can reach people and you can make a difference. But other than that, I like to be very private. So for me, it's like I never was doing anything with purpose in mind of I want to give back and I want to help. So in building with these containers, I'm helping the environment. I'm helping our housing crisis, which is we have way more people right now than we have homes. And I know that I can add value in these communities by helping a lot of people afford a luxury home with like a not luxury price tag. So it's just all
having
of those
a
things.
why is so important in a business, because you're going to face so much adversity, and the only way to get through it is having that why. It's something larger than you to really overcome those obstacles. What's a current issue or problem that you're facing, and how are you going to overcome it? Kind of what are the next 1 and 2 steps to bringing this to fruition where you're at?
Yes, so a very real and big challenge, problem I'm facing is our financing, obviously. So being in this space, the good thing is like, oh, there's not a lot of competition. There's a reason for that. It's really, really hard to get financing for these. And so after I found the right builders, my next hurdle was getting financing. And I thought it would be really hard to get a loan as like a newly single mom with no W-2 income. Like everything I do is just like, in the eyes of a bank, it's made up. It's like, this is all made up. Like I was like, no, it's real. Like all my money is tied up in this house that I can't sell though. Cause you're right. Like right now I have a lot of personal challenges in terms of liquidity being tied up in other things. I have professional challenges in terms of waiting on banks, private money lenders, investors, all these people to come together and give us a deal or not, because you can be on the hook for a long time hoping something pans out, because the person you're dealing with, it's either a private money lender, which I've found is like my only route at this point, like private equity. Like I stopped going to traditional banks kind of a while ago. So right now, we first got over the hurdle of how are these considered real homes, because you have this mindset and you have to educate on, oh, these are prefab, which prefabricated, or modular, like a trailer home, like where people are like, you can't lend on this. Like, no, you can, because of the way we build, and we incorporate traditional stick build elements like lumber, like vaulted ceilings, whatever. You can do anything you want, but that's just a challenge if you are new to a market you're in, like an industry. Like containers just became like up to code almost like a year ago, like building them with like traditional construction. So that's when I had the idea. I was like, shit, we're first followers, man. Like we got to jump on this. We're the pioneers, baby. I got all excited, and it is a bitch to be a pioneer. I'm sorry if I swear too much on here. It's a pain, a huge pain. So the financing, for me to get financing has been a big challenge, but I want to do it the right way. I need to do like at least 5 of these myself before I'll feel comfortable having our fund, which we are like in the talks of setting up a syndication. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's essentially like a crowd fund, like you're crowdfunding capital for developments. And one of mine, I want to do like an RV park, and I've never even been in an RV, but it's my weird, awkward pipe dream. I'm like, I want an RV because I want to deck it out like Chip and Joanna Gaines. Like I love Magnolia. So all of those things, I'm like, we'll do that. We'll get there. And I hate waiting. I'm so impatient. But the last year has just been a process of, I need the right builders, which I finally have. And then after that, it's like, I need the right finance partner, which this first one is just taking such a long time, but I have a solid connection with our guy, and we all agree, like as soon as this first one's done, the rest are going to be gravy from here.
Snowball effect, absolutely.
Yeah.
Build out the resume, the track record. Well, I'm excited for your journey. It's a great mission, and especially being in the real estate industry myself, I'm excited to see you enter the industry, and however I can help, definitely give me a call.
Yeah, you can help by partnering with me. We can invest in stuff.
There we go. All right. Well, with our last time here, let's get into your creativity.
Okay.
So this one's called the Elevator Pitch Challenge. So it's going to be a fictional product. Just give a quick little elevator pitch.
Okay.
You can pick one of these 3.
Okay. I mean, the other ones are so good, but I'm worried I'm going to keep us here till like 11 o'clock.
Yeah, just one of them.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I'll probably go with the pet. Yeah.
Pet teleportation. All
Yeah.
right. Why should someone buy a teleportation device for their pet?
So if you're ready for Jet Pet, Garrett, so there's seriously a new thing called Jet Pet And what it is it's a teleportation device for your pet. So, like when you're at work and all you want is to like hug your squishy baby and the paw camera isn't doing it, like where you can give them treats and you just want them, right? This thing is so dope because when you want your baby and no one's looking, you can literally press a button and now your dog can be with you at work. But when you have your client come into the office, you can put them back in it's a little kennel. So it looks very aesthetically pleasing. We actually have them come in 3 different colors. And it doesn't look like a scary like time machine like you've seen in movies. It's actually a lot more sleek and completely like unnoticeable that you would realize. Yeah. So what's really, really great about it is the range it has on this. It's unlimited. So like if you have to go on that business trip in Japan, why would you put your dog on that flight with you? And you can't have your dog the whole time. And they might not even want your dog in your hotel room in Japan, but you take this thing with you. It's collapsible. It's like seriously the craziest shit. You could take it into Japan and boom, your dog's there. They're developing one for people. It hasn't been approved yet. And you can get the Jet Pet in different sizes. So whether you have a Doberman or a Chihuahua, like you can have a smaller Jet Pet if you want it to be more discreet. But I'll get you one for Christmas.
I'd love that. Wow. The Jet Pet coming soon, 2025.
Oh, it's out, baby. It's out.
It's out. Get yours now. Yeah. The pet's outside. We'll be outside.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I like that. That was well done.
Not my best work, but
that's pretty creative. I like it.
At least I didn't say pass.
Exactly. The brand mashup madness. So the challenge is to come up with 2 well-known brands,
okay,
combine them, do a little collab, and then create a hybrid product or service. And then tell consumers what the features are and why they benefit from this collaboration.
Okay, first thing that comes to mind is Nike Goldfish. I don't know why. Because I said Nike earlier and Goldfish came out. So it's called Nike Fish. And what's great is it's your shoes, but it's like if you want a snack, if you're like me, I need to snack constantly. And yes, it's children's food. That Goldfish make me happy. Fruit snacks make me happy. It's a toxic trait right now, but it's my vice. So Nike Fish, kind of like Nike Swoosh, but instead of where the swoosh is on the shoe, it's a little boop, and the compartment of Goldfish comes out. And they have a partnership now. So anywhere you get your Nikes, you can also buy Goldfish. So that is the combo product I would sell. And I guarantee there could be something on Amazon now that has like snack storage in your shoes. I guarantee that's what it is. So yeah, those are the 2 products I'd combine, snacks and feet.
Man, I think it's a winner. Goldfish that when you eat them,
Nike
you
Gold.
transform
Gold
into an elite athlete.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, it's only short term though, like 2 to 4 hours. Like that's the time. But otherwise, it's
after that you become a goldfish. So be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. See, we're both pretty good at this.
You can't go too far with it. Well, this has been wonderful. Is there anything else you'd want to mention that, any insights or anything that's top of mind that you want to discuss that we haven't talked about? We've covered quite a bit.
Yes, no, we definitely have. And I guess, yeah, my only final thoughts are anyone that is either currently going through what you and I both go through or wanting to, number one thing, and you will be successful 10 out of 10 times, is just don't give up. Like the persistency is key. Perseverance is more key. And I also, for what it's worth, big advice for me is just have faith in something that you can really rely on and go, I'm not giving up and I know I'm going to be okay. And I think you can literally do anything.
That's amazing. What a way to end. Well, if people want some advertising help or want to get involved with the real estate business, where can they find you?
Yes. Please come build homes with me. Feel free to follow me on Instagram anytime at Chloe Millard Official. And obviously our websites, which I have posted all over there.
Great. Well, this has been such a pleasure. Great seeing you, Chloe, as always. Great conversation and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me, Garrett.